wonderful to be with you again today, and we are in our studio in the hill of Jerusalem. Do you know that? It's just wonderful. And today we have a wonderful friend and a lady who is from Germany. She was born in Germany, and she is a post-war child of the Second World War. And she came here in Israel to volunteer many years ago. She will explain to us a bit. Her name is Inge Buhs, and she started to do an amazing work among the Holocaust survivors. So we're going to speak about these things, what she's doing, how she's affecting them, but also how she was affected by them and discovering them, and also bringing some people here in Israel who are meeting them and discovering their real stories, you know, directly. It's a bit different that when you read things in history books, it's very different.
That's very different.
It's very different. So Inge, it's wonderful to be with us. Give us a bit of background, how you arrived in Israel, and what was your heart for coming here in Israel?
Well, I became a Christian when I was 22 years old, completely out of the world. One day I got baptized. God changed my whole life in 1983 and my baptism. And they gave me a scripture from the book of Ruth: wherever you go, I shall go. Wherever you be, I shall be. Your people are my people, and your God is my God. To be honest, I didn't understand that scripture because I never read the book of Ruth, but it was clear from the beginning that I have a love for Israel, good teaching about Israel, how it's connected, it's our roots. And I didn't want to work as a waitress anymore, what I did before in a barbarian beer restaurant. So I came 5 months later to volunteer in Israel.
Oh, so this was very fast.
In 1983, yes.
So what did you do in the land?
Yes, I came to a farm, met other people, and went back and forth to Germany. My brother had also become a believer. We worked in an old people's home and different places. I knew that God wanted me in Israel, but not completely clear what was my calling inside Israel. But that came clearer in 1987.
And so what did you do?
I worked with a German doctor at that time, and for 2 years.
So he was a doctor, like Israeli doctor?
No, she was German. She came here just to also serve the Jewish people. Okay. She did kind of alternative medicine, like fasting for people to clean their system. And there was a patient of hers where we became very, very close friends. She was, of course, much older than me. And she asked me to move into her home, and she was an Auschwitz survivor. Mm-hmm. She was in Poland, from a big family. She was the only survivor from the family who lived in Poland at that time. Mm-hmm. And she could never have children, was haunted with depressions. And only in this time I actually was really confronted with the issue that it was really my people. Mm-hmm. Of course, something we knew about the Holocaust, but in my upbringing, almost nothing. They always talked about the war with the Russians, but very little about the Jewish people. And I think when I met Mrs. Steiner, it really hit me that it was my German people who caused all this suffering. Mm-hmm. And through her, I met many, many survivors. Every Shabbat, the house was full with Holocaust survivors. The neighbor was survivors. But they were always kind to me. But in that time, it was still different to be a German in Israel. They had to overcome still a little bit. And they couldn't understand why would she take a German into her home.
Sure, because it was her.
Yes, she invited me. They said, why you can help an Israeli student? Why would you need a German Christian to come to the home?
Yeah, because sometimes we don't understand. But I remember a friend, I think it was English, and he said, I will never put my feet in Germany. And I never saw this way before, but he was a Jew, and obviously for them, it's like, no way. So what you are saying is very important. They carry something, and even 1 or 2 generations, even after the Holocaust.
Sometimes it's the second generation who fights it more than the survivors themselves. And today, I almost never encounter anything like this. It was right in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But I learned that if we are faithful in our little tasks, God is always faithful, and He always does the big thing which we can't do. and he gave a lot of reconciliation. The neighbors of Mrs. Steiner, they were very ill and very Orthodox. They really didn't want me in their house. But the lady got so sick that they needed help, and on the end they accepted my help. And I have to say that was one of the closest relationships on the end I have ever had to Holocaust survivors.
Oh. So you are doing, this is interesting because so there is a name, tikkun, that the Jewish people use, and is exactly what you were doing?
Yes, I hope so. Through little things I could do. I was never sent out by a big church. I had no money. I wanted to do something for the survivors, and I had my 2 hands. So I started to clean their houses, bring them to doctors, or shop for them, or nurse them, wash them. That's what I could do. And the interesting thing was, it was in the beginning the Holocaust survivors who supported me financially to be able to do this.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, that was for me also. Like, it confirmed for me my calling, that this was the right way to go.
So after looking after them personally, you had like an idea to start for a house?
Yes.
Can you explain how it went,
yes.
how it happened?
I saw a couple of Holocaust survivors who lived in their homes completely alone, really lonely. And I knew they would, an old people's home wasn't the right setting, but they would have been together with others. And I was thinking, how could we do this? And then I went 3 times to Russia at that time, later on more. But we went and saw Holocaust survivors in Russia. The Jewish Agency does a great job, there's no doubt. But they were thinking, who takes care of me there? Where will I go? And what will it cost? It was a little bit too unsure for them. And I always thought if we just would have a home to help them, and we as German Christians would serve them, then that would probably, many maybe would make Aliyah. So I had hardly connections to Germany. No money whatsoever. I prayed or went cleaning, it's true. But there were a few believers in Germany, they said they think it's a good idea and we could start a home. We didn't buy it, but we rented it. And for this, of course, we needed an organization. So we opened an organization in 2000.
And what is the name of the organization?
Yes, the name of the organization is Ner Yaakov.
Which is a beautiful name.
Yes, and it took me forever to find this name. And later on I understood why, because God really wanted this name. And for me, my vision was to have a house, not a big institution, a small house where few people live like a family together. German Christians would serve them. And all the needy survivors who needed that home should come. And when I couldn't find a name, and that was first very frustrating, Mrs. Steiner, the first Auschwitz survivor I started with, she said, could you not remember my grandfather and send a memorial, put in his name? And that's how the name came, Ner Yaakov. The Jewish people always have a candle, a ner, for Yaakov Thalenberg, but it's of course a light for the Jewish people. And when I agreed to this, she told me that he actually had a home in Poland where he took all the needy people. And
so
it was like yes, it was a continuation. But there was something else with this name, because I knew about some cousins, but in all the years I lived with her, not met anybody. And I knew in Poland, in Auschwitz, she survived alone. But one day I received an email from Brazil, and it was with the last name Thalenberg. And what happened was that a great-grandson of this Yaakov Thalenberg looked for the roots of his family, and that's because we named it Ner Yaakov, he found us.
With your website? With your
Yes,
website?
we put it in the website, and then he saw that there was in his great-grandfather's name an organization, and without this name I would have never found them. And what happened was that the oldest son of Yaakov Thalenberg was not in Poland, but in Germany when Hitler came to power, and he could save himself to Brazil. That's why a part of the family stayed alive.
Amazing. And when I think also the name Yaakov, obviously it was the 12th son of No, he's the one who had 12 sons, but Yaakov, like, his name has been changed into Israel.
Yes.
But when you see the name Yaakov, is more the family name, and Israel will be more the nations, which is interesting also because what you are doing with these people.
It's combined.
Yes, and it's the family coming together, and it's just amazing to see
So
that.
Mrs. Steiner was too old to go to Brazil, so she said, Inge, I will pay you the ticket, please go to my family in my name. And it was a very moving time for us. I have to say, also for me. Later on, they made a family tree and adopted me as this German Christian in their family. So that was beautiful.
And they are still in Brazil?
Yes, they're in Brazil. I try to work on them to make Aliyah, but they're living actually quite good there. They are very connected to Israel, and I actually believe one day they will come. They came to visit and met Mrs. Steiner later on, so it's an ongoing story. And also, that's what I feel is God's way, that the best friend of this man who found us in the internet, of the Thalenbergs, he's responsible for the young Jewish people to go to the March of the Living in Poland,
yeah.
Czechoslovakia. And ever since this time, we have a connection, and he brings all these young Jewish people to our home to meet the survivors.
Oh, very good. And in your house is like a place for some Holocaust survivors, but you have also some young people or some people from different nations coming to meet and to speak with them.
Originally, this home was there to help people to make Aliyah, and if people didn't have good housing. But I think, except for one, all the Holocaust survivors who used to live with us, they all died. So we needed to change the whole house. And it's not a home just for living there, but it became like a center for many purposes, I would say. So our volunteers still go into the private homes to clean and help survivors who are alone or bring them to doctors, because that's how I started, and I feel we shouldn't lose that. I feel that was the key. This practical help was the key to their hearts.
Which is again chesed. I think this is something with very Jewish, funny enough, like to do
something.
To do something,
Well,
and little acts of kindness means so much, and
but
sometimes we
repentance
forget.
always should bring some change or action, and that's the simple things we could do. So then the house itself, we take Holocaust survivors now for when they need a holiday or to simply spoil them. Before that, people were very, very ill, so it is a big change for me too. But when I see that something happens in the relationship between a Christian and a Jewish person and a German and a Holocaust survivor, then I know we did what we are supposed to do.
And you do the feast also?
Yes, we do all the Jewish feasts. It is very interesting that the older Russian Holocaust survivors, they don't know a lot. But it's interesting that God would use us as German Christians to teach them about their feasts and celebrate. And now they are always coming, the old people, and build the sukkah, what they never could do. And so we have many kind of reconciliation meetings. Germans, mainly German people, go to Yad Vashem when they come. And it is very difficult. And I know that from my own life, because I carried in the beginning all this shame and guilt when I understood it was my nation. But something which we could never think about was that the Holocaust survivors were used to heal us. Here we came to bless them, but they blessed us. And when these young German people come with such a bad feeling and the survivor reaches out to them, they don't need to say many times, I'm sorry, or things like this. The survivors know. They know. You don't need to do anything. They're so sensitive, you can never fool them. But if they know you're with them, sometimes, and that's what they did with me and with these groups, they bring one story up from a German who did something good to make us feel better. And in this process, I can say I became very whole in being a German today. and it was through the help of the Holocaust survivors. So, and this is a little bit my aim when Germans come, that they go different. And when they go different, they can stand better with the Jewish people, not out of guilt or shame,
but like for the right thing.
For the right reasons.
And be free.
So we have many, many good experiences in these meetings.
I read your newsletter, and it was so lovely that you are saying they are laughing, they are happy.
Yes.
What, you know, to be able to give them some joy, what beautiful things to be able to do.
I think we are not talking about this enough, and we should honor God more in this, because the depths of their pain, as much as I hear about this, I know nothing. I will never understand really the horrors about the death camps and what it means to lose all the family. But when I see that these people can hours and hours sing and laugh, and they came to a Hanukkah party now to us, and there were problems with the buses, and the lady got home at 11 o'clock in the night, and she said she had a good time, I shouldn't worry, and it is completely amazing. And they're laughing a lot, and they're joking, and that they can do this, carry no bitterness, no hate against us. They open not only their doors, they open their hearts for us Germans. I believe we should honor God in this, because it's something He did.
This is beautiful. This is very touching. You told me also you are doing things with the police. So why and how does it work, and how is it connected?
Yeah, that was an interesting story, because, I mean, it says all things turn to the good for those who love God. And we had a break-in our house when the old sick people still lived. And there's not a lot to steal, yes, but the computer and the jewelry of the volunteer was stolen, so we had to tell it to the police. So one day I got a phone call from a police officer, and he said, "This is Kobi from the police." He didn't even say his full name, which was very strange for me as a German.
But it is very Israeli.
Yes, very Israeli. And can he come to see what we do in this house? So he came with another 2 officers, and it happened to be the highest officer in the north of Jerusalem. And they were so wonderful. They would sit there and take the time and honor each Holocaust survivor who was there, to listen to their stories. And they said, whatever you need, you can turn to us. So from this time, that's about 6 years, a little bit more, the police is involved in our small work. So they come and speak to the Holocaust survivors. They build the sukkah together. They have police station comes, and if it's only 5 minutes, and it's very funny, the survivors tell me they're not doing it right. That's very funny. But so the police, it honors these old people very much. And they feel more safe, I'm sure, but it's not just this. This young officer showed them, look, this beautiful country, you built it up for us. And we can be in this country. And today we watch over you. And this is actually very, very good. And I think it's also good for the young police officers to see survivors and what they went through, and they don't have any hate or anything. I think that's a school for all of us. So that's how the police is involved, and the last few years they did their official meeting of the police on Holocaust Remembrance Day in our house, which was, it was an honor for us, of course.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about time is going on, and the young generation to be able to be directly in touch with the Holocaust survivors. I can imagine that is doing something to them.
Yes, it does. I believe it. One officer now, they said they were so busy during the holidays, and he said, but to come here is so important for them. And even if they take 20 minutes and half an hour and speak to the survivors, it's wonderful. I'm so proud of the Israeli police in this, yes.
They do it, yes. They have a tough work.
Yes.
Tough work. This is wonderful. Maybe we can, you can look at the website also of Inge, and you can see the story and to give a bit more of background. But what I love and it's really also emphasis in your website, you do practical things.
That is true, yeah.
So do you have, how many volunteers do you have? Do they come every year?
Well, for us it
through
would
the
be
year?
the best for a year. Some come for half a year. And sometimes we have people to jump in, but the volunteers, I am also happy if they don't have to clean. But if they are not willing, then it's a problem for me. Because it's really important not just to talk to the Holocaust survivor and leave them if it's hard for them to do the easy jobs, or to go in the market and buy heavy stuff for them. So our volunteers are really willing to sit hours in the hospital, bring people to the hospital, clean, shop, the very practical things, that's true. And for me, I think as a German, that's very important, yeah. And honestly, the old people need it. It's so
Sure. How is it in Germany about the Holocaust? How the young generation is about that?
Today, I think they know a lot more. Then, of course, I actually believe that there came many young people who were facing this different than we still did. I'm proud they can cry, but they're not really carrying this.
But as a burden.
Yes.
They can have the compassion, but leave the
Yes.
guilt behind.
And of course, they say it should never happen, and everybody should, of course, do everything that nothing like this ever happens again.
Sure, it's so important. We had some German people who came here and look at Harada, and it was nice to see them, like they know that the media is important and they are really trying to do things, you know, standing with Israel. And
Yeah,
so
it's so
it's
important
beautiful
to
to
hear.
see that. Just 30 seconds. What was your most amazing things doing this job? What has been changing you? What is the more personal thing why are you happy to still do this work?
Look, today it's not a must out of shame or anything like this. It's a privilege. It's a privilege for me as a German Christian, or even as just a person, to know them. You can learn so much from them. And for me personally, what was a blessing was that lately I thought about this, how many of them called me a mother to them. Wow. Now they are many, many years older, but they said, you are my mother, or you are like a mother to us. And I thought, look, here I didn't have children, but I had many. Wow. Yes. And one of our closest Holocaust survivors just died maybe 3 months ago. And before she died, she asked everybody in the last meeting for forgiveness. That was very interesting. And then her son sent me a WhatsApp and she said, you were like my mother. I love you till the heavens. And then she said, Shalom. And that was the last I've ever heard from her. So it's a big blessing. People think we are coming to give, but actually I'm receiving a lot.
This is beautiful. This is beautiful. You see, from out of darkness, light is shining. It's just amazing. And again, this name, Ner Yaakov.
That's true. I didn't even think too much about it.
Is the family, and we can be a family. Inge, thank you so much.
I thank you.
Thank you so much to come and tell us what's happening here in Israel with the Holocaust survivors. I hope that you really enjoyed this program, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Shalom, dear friends. Today we are looking at the idea of tikkun. Tikkun means rectification, or it means also fixing. It comes from the verb, the Hebrew verb, which is letaken, which means to amend, or to redress, or to fix, and to rectify. Okay? So you might hear about this name Tikkun Olam, which means like to rectify the world. You know, we are in a broken world, and it's important that one of our work in the world is to do tikkun, to repair it. So there is 3 main characteristics under this name of tikkun. One is reading Torah, because it's God's instruction, and sometimes people are afraid of the name Torah, but we don't need to be afraid of it. It comes from instruction or teaching. Like here in Israel, a teacher will be called a moreh, or a lady will be a mora, and is from the same root of yoreh, which is about Torah, is the same root, okay? And Torah means, so we said, instruction. So it's reading our instruction book and see how we have to live. Now, the second part of Tikkun Olam is do act of kindness. And I love the name kindness in Hebrew is chesed. We translate it sometimes by grace, but it doesn't seem very specific. What I like with chesed is act of kindness. And the third part of Tikkun Olam is keeping God's commandments. Like Jesus said in John 15, verse 10, he said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And when Jesus, Yeshua, was saying that, he was a Jew and he is a Jew, and so he was speaking about God's commandment that he's given in the Old Testament. And there is a beautiful passage in Micah 4:6, and you might know it. I will say it in Hebrew and you will understand. Osot mishpat is to do justice. Ve'ahavat chesed is to love this act of kindness. So the last one is ve'at snea, and which means to walk humbly, to walk modestly, is to know our place and really connect with the other people. And this is part of Tikkun Olam. So now you learned some new things today, and we will see you again next week. Bye. Inge, thank you very much again for coming and to tell us the story, practical things that you are doing here in the land of Israel as a German lady. Kol hakavod, as they say here.
All the honor to the Lord.
It's beautiful. And from us, we say bye, and we will see you next week.